Okay, let's jump right into today's explainer, where we are going to explore the sheer absolute power of visual storytelling. I mean, from ancient cave paintings all the way to massive blockbuster films, we're uncovering how images fundamentally shape human emotion, influence our culture, and really just drive our entire communication landscape. Because at the end of the day, we are visual creatures first and foremost.
So, think about your own habits on your phone for a second. Why do we actually stop scrolling? Seriously, why does a stunning photograph, a dynamic graphic or a beautifully composed video frame literally freeze your thumb in its tracks, while you'll just casually swipe past hundreds of words of text without a second thought?
Well, the answer comes down to this staggering number 60,000. Our brains are biologically hardwired to process visual information roughly 60,000 times faster than text. That is the biological powerhouse right there behind visual storytelling. When you look at an image, your brain isn't just seeing abstract shapes, it is instantly translating light and color into emotion, into context, and into narrative, all in a fraction of a second.
So, here is our roadmap for today. 1. The history of visual storytelling. 2. The psychology of images. 3. Blueprinting with storyboards. 4. The grammar of cinematography. And 5. Immersive narratives and the metaverse.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, History of Visual Storytelling, from Caves to Screens.
You see, this innate need to visually record the world, it isn't just some modern internet trend. It builds across all of human history. Our timeline begins way back in prehistory with the Indonesian warty pig cave paintings. Those are actually the oldest discovered evidence of our ancestors using images to reflect their world. By 3200 BCE, we see Sumerian cuneiform, pressing these little cone-shaped tallies into clay, followed really closely in 3100 BCE by Egyptian hieroglyphics, which, by the way, translates to sacred carvings. Then fast forward to our modern era, and the launch of Instagram in 2010 turned millions of everyday citizens into instant, global visual storytellers. And right after that, in 2012, the New York Times published Snowfall. It was this incredible multimedia piece that perfectly demonstrated the immersive possibility of digital-first visual journalism.
Moving right along to Section 2, the psychology of images, why they resonate.
To really understand why these visuals stick with us long after we've seen them, we have to look at what's called the picture superiority effect. This is a fascinating psychological phenomenon where information presented visually is remembered 65% longer than text alone. Why is that? Well, it's because it triggers what neuroscientists call elaborative encoding. Basically, when you see a powerful image, your brain doesn't just passively look at it. It actively builds an entire memory palace, attaching emotions, context, and a whole internal story to that visual, deeply locking it right into your long-term memory.
And to show you just how powerful that psychology is in the real world, consider Coca-Cola's famous Share a Coke campaign. By simply replacing their iconic logo with people's names, they turned a standard bottle into a personalized piece of visual storytelling. This triggered an immediate emotional connection and a sense of in-group identification, driving a massive 7% increase in sales. Think about that. They didn't change the recipe at all. They just changed the visual narrative.
Okay, on to Section 3, blueprinting with storyboards, planning the narrative.
So how do creators actually practically map out those psychological beats? Well, before any expensive film production begins, a storyboard artist uses a highly efficient workflow as the ultimate visual blueprint. Step 1 involves taking that written script and breaking it down into quick, rough thumbnail sketches. Step 2 scales those up into beat boards, which are all about capturing the major, sweeping emotional moments of the story. Step 3 drills all the way down into continuity boards. These describe absolutely every single camera angle and shot needed for the crew. And finally, in Step 4, these are all edited together with temporary sound into an animatic. That's basically a rough story reel that lets creators actually feel the pacing before a single reel camera even rolls.
Which brings us to Section 4, the grammar of cinematography, crafting the frame.
Now, at the core of all this execution is one absolutely golden rule: show, don't tell. Dialogue tells, sure, but visuals show. A story is essentially just a depiction of change, and the camera's true job is to visualize that change. Think about the opening 4 minutes of Pixar's Up. You know the scene. Through purely visual sequences, we experience an entire marriage, the joy, the dreams, and the ultimate heartbreaking loss, with almost zero dialogue. The images are doing all the heavy lifting there, delivering profound emotional change directly to us, the viewers.
Let's do a rapid-fire breakdown of the cinematography rules that actually make this possible. First up, the rule of thirds. Placing your subjects off-center gives the frame this really dynamic breathing room. Then we have leading lines, which use architectural geometry, like hallways or fences, to literally pull your eye right toward the subject. And camera angles? They are micro-narratives all on their own. A low angle looks up, making a subject feel mythic and dominant, while a high angle looks down, communicating vulnerability or smallness. Finally, color psychology uses specific palettes, like say warm oranges for intimacy or cool blues for isolation, to silently track a character's emotional arc over time.
And just look at how our brain connects the individual frames in these sequential panels. We see a man in bed, a clock, a window showing the sun, another clock, and then the man on the phone. Boom. We automatically construct a narrative of time passing in a shared environment. Even though the man and the clock are in totally separate panels, our spatial memory links these graphic marks to conceptual structures, building this unseen overall environment right inside our own minds. It's kind of like a giant puzzle our brain solves instantly.
Finally, let's look at Section 5, Immersive Narratives and Metaverse, the Next Frontier.
As we explode outwards into digital worlds, the very structure of storytelling is shifting. Historically, traditional storytelling has been linear and author-driven. The creator has total control, and you, the audience, just sit there in passive observation. But metaverse storytelling, it completely shatters this. It offers nonlinear, branching paths that are driven by user agency. You are no longer just watching. You are an active participant making choices that directly shape the plot progression and the character interactions within a massive, immersive 3D space. This shift has actually given rise to a vital new hybrid term, immersography. This is an emerging narrative form that combines immersive VR and AR technology with structured storytelling. It completely, utterly blurs the boundary between the viewer and the narrative world. Creators using immersography are trying to strike a very delicate balance here. They want to maintain the deep emotional resonance and integrity of a traditional narrative while still giving the user total multisensory immersion and personal agency. It's a real game changer. Which brings us to a final provocative thought. As we move further into these decentralized digital spaces, what happens to the story when you become the author? If every narrative is uniquely tailored to our own personal choices, how does that change our shared cultural bonds? Definitely something to think about the next time you step into a digital world. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.